Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the ETVT podcast, where you're free to build your perception from an infinite world of possibilities. I'm your host, Elijah Vargas. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ETVT podcast, where we're all about perception. Today, I have a special guest, and when I say special, I mean special, one who you have heard me mention many times in the past, and I'm really excited to introduce my friend, my tax man. That's what I always refer to you as, my tax man. Oh, all right, I have the CEO of Hart Financial Solutions LLC. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Hart. How you doing there, Andrew?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I didn't know you mentioned me on the podcast before. I guess I need to catch up more.
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's always really like tax man. I call you tax man.
Okay,
Some people might even think I'm talking about the Beatles. I don't know.
That's good. That's good. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Dude, Hart, the pleasure is all mine for numerous reasons. And I'm ready to get right into it because I have so many questions, and me knowing you personally, there's so much that you're going to unpack for us. And I want to get right into it. So I was thinking, the big question is why taxes, right? You being a gentleman who has a mission, a purpose. Why taxes? Why this world?
So taxes followed me getting involved in accounting as an industry, excuse me. So when I was younger, my dad was self-employed. He was a builder in carpentry. And I think when I was 9, he told me, he says, I'll pay you $1 a page if you load this check register into the QuickBooks desktop, which was, those old check register where they wrote it down with pencil and they tracked their balance. But he had me put it in there, and that was my first introduction to that. And as I grew older, I saw how he struggled with that business, how he could generate a whole deal of revenue, but not really ever generate any profit. And I looked around, there wasn't really anybody who helped those people. H&R Block was mostly a tax firm, and that's great, which I'll get to why taxes are important. But I got older and I was going through college for business, and I ended up in accounting because I was really good at it. And the chair of the accounting at Troy at that time said, you should really switch over. So I did that. I ended up in accounting. It teaches you a ridiculous amount of intricacy into business. Like, you're not going to get any more detail out of any other degree. But I linked up with my dad's tax man, and in 2017, I think, I had my LLC started, and he hired me as a contractor and essentially was my sensei, taught me everything about everything that he knew at the time. Would give me returns to work on, give me a little percentage off of them. And I did that for 6 years, I think, along with being in the Army and all. But why I have stuck with it is because I found a way to help people like my father and deliver a cheaper cost to do so. I found a way to uplift business owners and just individuals who were struggling financially, whether it was understanding what they needed to do or developing discipline. And we branched out into all the rest of it, but tax is it's a nerdy thing to say, but you can change somebody's life with it because there's so much they don't know, especially if you own a business and you bring them in, you go, no, we can do a lot better with your deductions. We can do a lot better and actually have you set up for next year. So yeah, I think I don't like taxes. I don't like doing them. My employee does, and she's faster than me. But you have to pull that information to help them with their other issues. Like tax planning, you have to take that into account when you're planning somebody's investments, or if they're a business, whether they're purchasing something, it all plays together and it all folds into one at the end.
Okay.
All encompassing.
I have a few thoughts because there was so much in that.
Sorry.
Oh no, when I say so much, I mean knowing you is there's every part that you had mentioned, from starting with helping your dad by inserting the pages in QuickBooks to getting your degree in accounting, to having your sensei, to finally starting your LLC where you can help people, and having your employee who you also mentioned that you don't like to do it, which also I know you were an extremely disciplined individual. And just from that, there's so much that I want to ask about. The first thing that I can think of, we'll do it in the order of which it was
Sure.
spoken. From the moment from when you got your degree to when you had your first sensei, would you say that your experience once you actually were finished with college was more important or equal, or went hand in hand to allow you to do what you're doing now?
Um,
This is a question more for the young people who are like, I don't know where I'm headed. Am I starting off in the right direction?
yeah. So an accounting degree is going to go hand in hand with the accounting industry. It's one of the longest business degree, I believe, as far as credit hours. There's more involved, there's more to learn. The books are bigger and it's harder to pass those classes.
Mhm.
So I started college in 2014 when I was 18, Troy Montgomery. It was great. I went online toward the end. Dan, who was my sensei, Dan Smith, before I ever graduated, I graduated in 2018. In 2017, I had the LLC formed. He never took me on as an employee, took me on as a contractor. And that's his distinction with a difference, because he told me, you need to keep your LLC. You need to get better at this, because in 5 to 10 years, I'm going to scale back. You don't need to be my employee. You need to start building your company now. And when we were 2, 3 years in, that's when he was pushing me, hey, nobody's got Huntsville market. So take the Huntsville market. Can you do it? Can you get up there? Can you establish yourself? If you get up there, you can take the Huntsville market. And I'm probably losing track here. What was your original question? Help me out.
Actually, no, that went perfect because you already answered the question.
Okay,
Actually,
great.
is that your education in getting it from the institution did go hand in hand with your actual experience?
Yes,
Well, no, go ahead, finish that.
if you don't have the basis of theory and accounting and you try to go do somebody's bookkeeping, you are going to struggle. Because no, I've noticed like QuickBooks, they write a test and they do an exam, and that's all well and good, but it's written by people who wrote the software, not accountants.
Good point.
It's awful. So the only way to pass the damn thing is to pull it up on another browser and go, what the hell are they talking about? Because it's not realistic. It doesn't ring true to what is in the accounting world. You get in there, and what you have to do to balance somebody's books for a tax return or balance them to deliver reports is wildly different than how the software thinks it works.
Right.
And when I deal with clients a lot, it isn't Dan's training, it isn't my experience when I'm talking to them about a QuickBooks issue, which is accounting. So that is keeping things in a ledger, balancing things, balancing assets, all of that. That's before it goes to a tax return. And I'll explain the difference in a minute. You have to make adjusting entries. Things don't always make it through. Well, if you're doing that, you have to know what X is and where it goes. If you designed a software, that's great, but that does not mean you have accounting skills. And a lot of the times they'll offer their experts from Intuit and they mess it all up and they call me. I'm an accountant. I take the theories I learned from college. I cannot deny that I learned all that in college. I know exactly what's wrong when I dig into it. And Dan did not have an accounting degree. He's better
Okay.
at tax than I am, because accounting business doesn't really matter. They're not going to focus a lot on tax because it continually changes. Very bureaucratic, very manipulative. Accounting, there is no manipulation. It's very straightforward. But yes, I couldn't have done it this well without that degree. Not a chance.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think there is a very big gap, especially nowadays when we have this insane world of information, which numerous times previously I've shared is great. But in many ways, how we handle it how we handle it is very dangerous, because we have a lot of information, but then we confuse that with knowledge. So I feel like for many things, but especially accounting, as I've talked to you more and learned more from you, is I'll read so much on the internet or see whatever QuickBooks is saying, or you have influencers who are telling kids, "Hey, use QuickBooks. It's all you need." Or LegalZoom is another big one.
Yeah.
Like if you do this, you have everything you need for the law. But a lot of people don't understand how many years of knowledge and practice getting into the details. Even some experts, people have been in it for a while, are so misguided by the quick information.
Right.
There's a lot of things to miss. So I like when, and you are one of the very few in today's world who can sit here and say, hey, there's a lot of discipline and time that needs to go into it. But you're also willing to, which gets me to my next question. You're willing to lay the basis that people need to truly get that information. Which I want to share what you were saying. I know you're very well aware of this, but some people will say, what's that saying? You either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain. And what's amazing about you, Hart, is you have your purpose, you have your mission, and you stick to it. That is why I mention you and why I like working so closely with you, because you are one of the very few people who say no matter how twisted, corrupt, no matter what I can get from doing the dirty business or the lousy business or whatever, you and I both agree that you can easily just manipulate people and your stuff will blow up. I mean, that's the new age of ad
Sure.
making and marketing that we're living in, is pretending to be
Sell
what
them
you're
a
not.
course.
Yeah, very easy. And yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So now that was actually my next point, or next question is, what is it that makes you continue to fulfill your mission to do all of these things that you're doing with the purpose of helping other businesses, helping other LLCs, helping other people, for crying out loud?
Uh, well,
I guess that was a deeper question.
what it is, and it's interesting you said that. It deserves a deep answer. It's faith. And I know a lot of the times when I say that, the Christians jump up from their pews and cheer, and as do the Muslims and everyone else. And I appreciate that. And I think their faith is just as sacrosanct as mine is. But it is faith. And I've always kind of felt faith was, is like Alan Watts said, you're coming to the edge of the cliff. You're going to jump off. Two things are going to happen. Faith is two things are going to happen. You're going to hit the ground and have to do it again, or you're going to learn to fly. And either way, you win. I figure if you succeed, then you get the joy of succeeding in something and helping somebody. If you do not and you fail and you have to hit the ground again, then you've learned a lesson maybe others haven't. And I know a lot of people view failure as this, yucky. But no, you should hold your failures closer to the vest than you do your successes, because they taught you more.
Mhm.
Guess what? When we get to fly off into the sun, there is no AAR at the end of it to say what you did right and what you did wrong. And we're sure as hell not going to go back for it. But when we mess up, oh, we'll rip that one apart. And we'll be damn sure to know what we did wrong. So yeah, it's a faith thing for me, in that I feel myself called. I know I know so doing so many people who will cringe at this. I look at it as being favored by God. You can say favored by the universe. You can say the universe conspires to help you once you realize and awaken to what your purpose is. It doesn't really matter. Everybody's saying the same thing. I find myself to be a man favored by God. I fear only the loss of that failure. Everything else is relative. That's where I come from.
I've heard what you're talking about. That's known as being a God-fearing man,
Yes.
correct? And that is a very powerful thing. And I'm gonna be honest with you, is even when it comes down to someone who is handling your finances and in the numerous realms that you do, which I can't wait to get into a lot of things that are happening now, because it's not as simple as I made it sound or even thought it was in the beginning. Uh,
Taxes.
but knowing that this is who Hart is, I know, as someone who I would also be considered as an intelligent person who has been given the gift of intellect, because everybody knows that you earn your wisdom. It's not just given to you. Uh, well, it's given to you when you earn. It's a tricky, yeah. Um, I understand that you are the type of person that I would trust to handle important aspects of my life. And the realm that you happen to get into was accounting and financing and investing. And again, we'll just say finances
Yeah.
to put the umbrella over all of
Yeah.
that. Um, but now that we had that discussion, I want to ask about something that's kind of the in between of the two: discipline. You brought up, to me, when you said you don't like taxes but you do it, it goes into discipline. And I feel like discipline, especially now in this world of information, it's such a it's saturated in the way that it's explained, and a lot of people don't really understand what discipline really is. So in your experience and in who you are, I feel like we laid a great foundation. I want you to explain the importance of discipline and what that means to you.
Discipline is at its core treating in the value of integrity as integrity and not treating the value of integrity as a value of convenience. That's the core of it. So if you're going to be disciplined, most of the time, when we're actually being disciplined, when being disciplined matters, and is when no one is there. Because if somebody's pushing you, you have an exterior force motivating you. It's not the same. Discipline is when it's you chasing you to do the right thing. I I I don't like taxes, but they are integral to my understanding, and I knew they were. So I continue to work on them, do them. I can sit down and do an S corp return 2 hours if everything's there. I got really fast at the thing I was weakest the most. And now it's no longer a problem. Do I still like? No, I don't like it at all. But it's when everybody else is gone, it's between me and me going, all right, well, is integrity integrity, or is it whenever it's useful to you? Is it whenever it's beneficial? How slushy do your morals need to be, or can they be? And that's one of those battles that I deal with of, I don't want to go run. I don't want to go to the gym. Okay, that's cool, but you know, you said to you that you would. So does you matter less than other people because you value your word? You're disciplined enough to keep your commitments with others. And I know I'm segueing into self-love, but it's the same thing of discipline is, it has a self-love aspect, it has a honesty aspect and an integrity aspect and a not quitting and a faith. It is the culmination.
No, I agree. And actually, I think, wow, I love the way you put that. But no, that's perfect, because what I'm understanding out of that on the basis is when we think about discipline and we think about self-love, is just because something doesn't necessarily feel good doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Right.
Um, when we're talking about discipline and, the human quality, like, of self, right? Obviously, if you're getting punched in the face and it doesn't feel good, well, it's wrong. You shouldn't be getting punched in the face. But when we're talking about this, to stay on this topic, um, some people would say, oh, well, if you don't feel like, you should find the job that you love. And if you don't feel like you're on vacation every day, then it's wrong. Well, as I got older, I learned to disagree with that, because in order to fully fulfill the purpose that you were meant to in this life, which is a huge thing you and I are both aware of, there are going to be many parts that you just absolutely hate, and nobody wants to say that. You're right. Discipline should be integrity, even in moments when no one's there. It's not always going to be a convenience.
Right.
And I feel like we put this umbrella over it that shows that a lot of people believe that it should always be a convenience, but no. Uh, Actually, I was having this conversation earlier about relationships. Is the relationship doesn't always feel a relationship that always feels perfect, where you don't argue and you don't have to communicate issues, is wrong. Well, it's the same exact thing with yourself, with your relationship of self. You can have moments where, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do taxes. But the reason why I would trust you more as somebody to handle certain aspects of my business, which by the way, not only does he do my taxes, but the reason why he does my taxes is because when I started my business, I had no clue what I was going to do. And I was smart enough to know that despite what the internet was saying, I was not a master of it. So I went to a master. And for those of you who may be afraid of having somebody that will say, well, I don't love it, do your business, I will tell you, and if you didn't get that out of this, then I think it's wrong. But somebody who's honest about the discipline of self like that and recognizes that should be trusted more than somebody who will put on a facade.
Yes.
And actually, that's the best way that I can close that thought, or else I'm going to go into my own personal world.
I
But
get it.
you answered that perfectly. And I think that's going to go into our next thing is, why do you feel like Hart Financial LLC has gotten into the what I would consider tremendous? Now, I know you know that you're going to do better. You want to do better. You want to grow. But
Always.
right now you're doing great. And explain the position of Hart Financials LLC more for people who may be questioning or thinking you're BSing. I want you to use the time now to explain what you're doing and how all this is working and the great work that you have done.
Right. It started in 2017. I was a young man, about 20 years old, I think. Uh, I linked up with a guy who, again, master, sensei, that sort of deal. It grew from there. I began to pull in my own clients, and it was an apprenticeship, truthfully. But he never steered me away from doing my own thing. He never steered me away from being my own boss. And I think he knew he couldn't
Right.
because I've never done well with that. But uh, I wanted to have an accounting firm, business advisory firm for the small people and the larger ones that could handle everything, that you wouldn't have to leave the office. And I've damn near done it. So Hart Financial is an LLC. It primarily contracts to practices, or has over the past contracted to practices to handle their overflow work and overflow clients. We do have many of our own as well. But I added payroll possibilities to handle people's payroll. I added sales tax. I added um, personal advisory for folks in Huntsville on Redstone. They're making a lot of money, and not necessarily all of them are able to manage it all that well. But if you stepped in and showed them how to, they can. And I've done it, and it's a cool thing to show somebody where their money's been going, and then you see them change, you see their mindset change. But last year, 2023, through a struggle of about 6 months, I passed the Series 65 and became an investment advisor representative. And the company that I am covered under is a SEC covered company, so I'm a federally covered IAR, can work in multiple states. That allows me to manage the retirement accounts, trust funds, really whatever in the world of investment. So that was the last barrier, like we were talking earlier, the last barrier to entry for me was investments. And I couldn't tell you how many clients would ask me, well, can you do investments? Can you start me a Roth? No, I can't. Well, now the answer is yes. That was the last thing I could have possibly added. And I got through it. I got licensed, and yeah, that's where we are. We are a accounting, tax firm, investment advisory firm. It just there's no limit. And we still keep up our contracts. We love those. We love working with other practices, but we also love the clients that were homegrown and grassroots as well. And we obviously are going to search for more, but uh it's that faith again. I sit back, I deal with what I'm given with the best of my abilities and trust that I'll be given more. And I'll tell you, for 7 years I have been. So that's how I handle it. That's where we are right now.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important to know because I'm speaking so highly of you on this pod because this is why I started this is because I wanted to be able to make a platform where people like yourself um, can show the world that there are first of all, I think young people nowadays need examples, right? You have stuck with this for a very long time, since 2017. I mean, we're almost, if you think about it in the grand scheme of time, we're almost at like a decade.
Yeah, almost.
And you know, it's not a get rich quick. It's not a, you know, I knew and I'm a gifted individual since the beginning of time and it all just fell into place. No, you busted some ass. You really did, and you stuck with your purpose. And the reason why I speak so highly is because you have personally helped me for the last 2 years now.
Hmm.
So first of all, it's an honor for me to be able to personally, to the best of my knowledge, understand this and be able to share this, you know, open to the public. Because when there's people like yourself, which again, rarity, but as you guys are doing these things and really kind of the unsung heroes of the modern world, you don't get the, what do they call it, clouts. You know,
Yeah.
you're not spending $1,000 to somebody in a different state to go on Instagram and say force this on people's pages,
No.
you know. But we have proof, we have reason, you know, we have like this is it right here. You are not only a successful business, so you're not scamming people, you're not trying to manipulate people, and I vouch for that. But you can share your reasons. You have what they call the receipts. You have the receipts on why everything is working the way that it is. Not to say that there won't be challenges in the future, but it's important that people hear this and understand that you're going to overcome it. Like you
Yes.
said, overcome that barrier. So now that people understand that on the business aspect, let's talk about that, because we had a couple of discussions about having a poverty mindset, and that first barrier that pretty much every young person, when they start to realize that a second mountain in life is there, one of the first most intimidating things is, holy cow, I can't do it because I have XYZ, whether that's bills or your day job or you're taking care of your family, or, you know, we have all these reasons why we're prevented from crossing the first barrier for everybody that gains that level of consciousness. And we've developed a very normal culture where it's like, well, here's the reasons why I could never reach that level or could never create this or could never whatever. And I hate to say it, but I feel like this is a very general statement to describe what I'm feeling. But there's a facade that's going around, and we know it, and many people don't want to admit it. So, Hart, tell me, what is it about this barrier, and why is it so important? But also, why do you feel like it is something that people should overcome? And maybe I think you agree with this statement, but I think that you're the type of person who believes that it's more doable and more possible than what we make it seem.
I believe everything is possible if we set our mind to it. I think I always have. Uh, a lot of people tell me I couldn't do this. A lot of people talk it down, call it, oh, your tax thing, your part-time gig, your hustle.
I've heard that too.
And you know, you can't give a hell about what anybody thinks. It's an unfortunate side. A lot of people go, oh, you know, I'm strong. I don't give a damn what anybody thinks. Listen, that's still not the right way.
Tell them the truth, Hart.
We still need to care about what each other thinks. We do have to stop being assholes to one another, though, because you could have somebody saying something so powerful, but their delivery so bad that it hits on deaf ears. And I'm monologuing, and
Now is your chance, and you're still on the question.
well,
This is
yeah,
what I want.
it's the core problem of how to get past, you know, you got poverty mindset. How do you get past your environment? You have to want it. You have to want it first. You have to be hungry first. And courage will be there if it's like you'll either do it or you'll die. You know, that's that idea of courage. If you're there, you probably won't lose. Now, as far as where most folks are always seeing a negative side of life every day, it's easy to see a negative side of life every day. If you watch the news, there's nothing happy on there. If you look at your bank account, most of the time, there's nothing happy there. Look at your job, there's nothing happy there. What's left after you've analyzed everything exterior? Yourself. That's what's left. So if you're not happy with your exterior environment, which is a bit redundant, but the environment you're within, I'm not speaking for people who are, I guess, below legal age. You can't really do anything about the programming. Sorry. Good
Correct.
luck when you get into the adult world.
Yes.
The choice is always yours. I have slept in my car so that I could go to conferences. I chose the cheaper, like I could pay for the conference. I couldn't pay for the hotel room. So I slept in my car at a KOA. So I've done those things. It depends what you're willing to do. And how hungry you are. And I guess if you're not hungry, then, or you're not hungry enough, it's up to you to realize. I would love to say that there's some coverall to this issue, but it is as simple as you have got to want to be out of it. If you're stuck in poverty mindset, if you're stuck on some type of restrictive mental plantation, it is up to you. It's Bill Dong's ramen coming of age. It's up to you what type of choice you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be the best financial advisor. And if you're asking me, I think I am, but I could be the best financial advisor. But I'm not necessary if somebody is willing to research on their own. I'm not. So I guess for me, I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to manage it. I'm happy to do the taxes, all this, that, and the other. But I got here because I watched YouTube and looked at Google and listened to a guy who taught me. Like I'm here because I learned it. I'm not a genius. I'm not in Mensa. You can learn this too. And I encourage them. Every young person I meet, go learn it, man. Go get on QuickBooks, get on Zero, put your bank account in there, do the 30-day trial, see where your money's going. See if you're really okay with your habits. You probably aren't. And you can pay me to do it or you can do it yourself. I have enough clients, and there will always be clients because people hate taxes far more than I do. So there will always be clients. But for the ones, who are struggling with that mindset, look, dude, thrift stores are full of books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Jim Rohn, they're all over there. They're all on the bookshelves. Go read them.
Yeah.
Listen to them if you're not a reader. If you've got, I know a couple of people with dyslexia and dysgraphia. I understand. So listen to them. Get that programming in there. It will change your life.